It's my pleasure to bring on Aaron Quinn from eHouse Studio and Thomas McCutchen from Scoutside, both conveniently in Charleston, so that makes things a little easier. But before we kick off on the actual panel, I'd love for them both to introduce themselves and let you know a little about who they are and what the team specializes in and what they do with ReCharge.
Hey everyone, I guess I'll jump in with 2 A's in the name. We'll go alphabetical. Aaron Quinn, I'm the CEO at eHouse. As Rob said, we are located in Charleston, South Carolina. We have team members really all over the US and now a team in California. We do design development for e-commerce brands and sites, obviously leveraging Shopify Plus, ReCharge. We also do continued work, so strategy, innovation, new features, and CRO. The brands that we work with are essentially in a lot of different verticals, but I would say the most common is health and wellness, fashion and apparel, beauty and cosmetic, home goods, and as of recently, doing a lot of sporting goods with everything.
Hey, Aaron. Thomas.
Hey everybody, I'm Thomas McCutchen, the founder of Scoutside, and we are a creative technology agency, which I think is relevant to everyone in the audience, but it's kind of a fancy term for we do web design and development, and we like to build and design unique and converting experiences. We have a heavy focus on subscription commerce, which I think is pretty relevant for this conference. And about 85% of our clients are subscription based. So we really kind of pivoted hard into the subscription commerce and really like it. The reason is all the complexity it provides and allows us to use our brains to think through and problem solve. So we focus a lot on the complexity and building custom and converting digital experiences. We're also in Charleston, which is great. Fun for Aaron and I to be on the same panel. And we've got a lot of people here in Charleston and then throughout the nation as well. And are glad to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Thomas. So, yeah, the reason for today's panel is that for anyone who knows ReCharge in any sort of detail will understand that we're focused on one thing, which is subscription billing. We want to be the best we can do at that and support our merchants in the most automated way. What we're not here to do is solve the problems in the spaces like loyalty, ESP, in MarTech. That's where we see other teams having core expertise that we're just not built for. And so for today's panel, I want to talk about how we leverage and build that stack of technologies to support our merchants in the subscription space. So to kick off, I mean, Aaron, I'd love to hear some of your feedback on a particular tech stack that you see impactful, where you've managed to integrate a number of technologies alongside ReCharge and Shopify for success.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say most of our clients have what I would define as kind of a robust tech stack. So we're talking about loyalty, email, ERP, SMS, warehouse management, analytics, personalization, things like that. And I think from our perspective, and I think from the brand's perspective, that's kind of the attractiveness of, the ReCharge world and the Shopify world and things that are essentially this SaaS model is ultimately being able to tie everything together. So I would say that that's kind of a big draw to the people that we're working with. And I would say as agencies, we're oftentimes really, we used to be kind of a design and development agency, and that's what we did. And we did that for big e-commerce brands. And now we're really having to slide so much further back into the overall conversations of like, how does this all work together? How does the loyalty and the subscription or the inventory management and the subscription, how do those all things kind of work in tandem? Because I think the customer essentially, or the shopper, I would say, is almost experiencing, they want everything to be tied together from their brand interaction, right? Like they don't care about things being in one text, platform or another. They just want like one holistic experience. So I would say generally we're tying, the typical thing is, loyalty, whether it be Loyalty Lion or a Swell or Smile or things like that, helping bridge that with a subscription model, or maybe bridge some of that loyalty kind of benefits and what customers get from being an active sub with other tools. Maybe it's early access to things and things like that. So I would say it's kind of a variety of different tools ultimately to give the brand, the goal is something that's going to innovate and differentiate them, but really help them engage with their shoppers in kind of a meaningful, complete way. And I would say generally we're trying to find tools that are already have either a simple integration, if that's something that we're looking for, or ultimately, if we need to go another route where we just can't get done what we need to get done, we're kind of tapping into those APIs to kind of bridge those together with, some kind of light app or things like that to really give that unique experience or unique feature, for that brand.
Fantastic. And Thomas, kind of same question to yourself. Where do you see a lot of success, or have you seen a lot of success using the technology stack alongside ReCharge to give a merchant a unique experience they would not have had otherwise?
Yeah, so we seem to have found ourselves attracting a lot of complex requirements. And I mean, I think it really kind of goes hand in hand with a term that I hear a lot from Aaron, which is just modern commerce. It just gets more and more complex. And the second that a merchant wants to embrace subscriptions, unfortunately for them, I guess, it just means a little bit of complexity. The way in which we hear merchants want subscriptions and then the holistic program altogether, it just varies wildly from merchant to merchant. And so every deal we get is unique by definition. And I think that's the value proposition they're trying to add to their customer base and differentiate them from their competitors. So right from the get-go, the lead or the initial phone call is everything's kind of taken from there, built on some kind of complexities. And then where we find the best fit with Scoutside and therefore a partnership is those willing to explore what that means holistically. So, we really try to focus on, subscription first commerce, where it's not, taking an existing PDP and making it subscribe and save, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we're trying to do is say, okay, this could be a bigger part of your business model. How do we leverage subscriptions, which you're already interested in, as a more holistic approach to your business model? And it's not through, a slight tweak to a PDP. It's systematically a change to the business and therefore their digital presence. So, it's as simple as maybe a CTA in the nav that says get started, and then what happens next? What happens after that experience? And Aaron touched on it plenty, is creating meaningful memberships. So what the idea of just subscribing to a particular product is great. That's the core of subscriptions, but that's dime a dozen. How do we make that a unique opportunity? And at the end of the day, the subscriber base, those customers are, by definition, your most loyal. Even if they stick around for just two charges, that already makes them more loyal than just one charge. And they're also your most valuable customer base. So we take all of that information and we say, what can we do to solve these I don't know if you call them problems, but unique opportunities, I guess. How do we solve this holistically? And we use apps wherever we can. It most certainly reduces dev time and duration of build, so we can launch something faster. But we also found a unique opportunity in a lot of repetitive requests in building our own applications. And I don't mean, a Shopify app that's just commercially available or a ReCharge app that's commercially available, but that we have a bevy of tools that sit on our shelves that we pull out to solve complex problems. And they're not one size fits all quite intentionally, but instead that we're working with the merchant to figure out, how do we take this tool that we've built over and over again, but provide something custom on top. And that often includes loyalty and other programs to lift out of that and create those unique experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I would add, the one thing I would add to that, Rob, is I think that's kind of the complexity of what we do. And as agencies, I think, we talk about it a lot in terms of onboarding new team members, right? And so the tendency is like, hey, we're going to go hire somebody that knows Shopify Plus or ReCharge, but ultimately you have to hire somebody that is coming into the team and is going to be able to understand all the different ingredients that really make these things up. It would be nice if the same kind of ingredients always was the meal that we made, but I mean, to Thomas's point, like each brand is different, each customer experience is different, and each subscription is different. And the challenge with subscriptions, I think, is you're trying to basically kind of tie a very rigid thing, like every 30 days, the same amount, things like that, to basically a human being, which is constantly changing. Some might want rewards, some might want to be upsell, some might want bundling, some might not. Some might use email or SMS, and you're basically trying to find what works for that brand's customers. And so you really need to know and kind of familiarize yourself with all the different things, like knowing what loyalty program is going to do what integration is going to do what, because oftentimes it's not the same project by project.
So it's such an interesting point, and the idea of the analogy there of ingredients, Aaron. So I'll push it back just to Thomas for the first of all on this one, but at what point do you decide that you want to go down a proprietary middleware approach and that maybe a commercially available application just doesn't quite fit the merchant's requirements, or you're not comfortable that it can be adapted to meet that? I'd love to hear your stories on that one, and then Aaron will hear from you if that's okay.
Yeah, it's a good question. Is like what's the right? When do you know the moment's right to take on the endeavor of building an app or just doing it yourself? And of course, that's not even our mentality. I mean, we don't approach it that way. We think about first. We will most certainly see what's on market, and obviously, it's 2020. That no challenge is new. So there's got to be someone that's faced this problem and created a solution. I mean, that's the beauty of technology and the web. So the one exists. The question is, how well does it fit? And so we'll start there. And just like any general app, just like Shopify, just like ReCharge, just like loyalty, they're all after some percentage. I don't know what it is, 60, 70, 80% of the market. They're never after 100% because it's just not possible. And so, does that percentage cover the needs of the requests? And we start the conversation there. I think that's important. We don't upsell our own work unnecessarily. We want to use these things as a mechanism to achieve what we think is otherwise impossible in the market. So we'll expose to our merchants that yes, this tool over here, this app, exists to solve this problem, and it's covering X percentage of your requirements, but it's not 100. And let's talk through that. Let's figure out if that's okay. Often we'll launch a program or a feature on that app with those disclaimers, and then ultimately need to leave it and cover the gap, or potentially enhance it and build on top of it. That's most certainly what we do with ReCharge very, very frequently, is leverage ReCharge for everything it's really great at, and then extend its features into places that are truly unique for the merchant's requirements. So it's a little bit of that decision making. We also just keep our ears out for the thing that we get asked a lot. You have to be mindful about how you're listening for that. So it won't always sound the same. It'll come from a unique mind. It'll come from a merchant. So they'll describe a requirement in whatever ways in their brain that's invariably different than the last merchant. But when you roll that out into development requirements, then they start looking similar across other merchants. Such as a customer portal experience, post-purchase experience, or product bundling and being able to offer subsidized pricing or price breaks based on the bundled. I mean, not even Shopify really covers that well. There's a ton of apps that do that on Shopify, and then when it comes into subscriptions and recharge, it's even more complex. So that's another area that we started building. We've built an app to help ease into those programs as well. And then what we have here is a tray of tools that we can use that we're way more familiar with because we built them than anything else on the market, and we can adapt and roll with them. And often it's about the growth too. So, where do we see the merchant needing to take that feature? How big are we dreaming? What's going to roll out in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? And will that work with an existing app, or do we need the flexibility to grow with something custom built?
I'd like to come back to that idea of adaptation and familiarity, but before that, Aaron, just like to get your thoughts on at what point do you opt to go down a proprietary middleware route as opposed to a set app?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I agree a lot, obviously, with what Thomas just said. I think the other aspect, from our perspective is like innovative brands, innovative clients. They want innovative approaches, right? So I would say a vast majority of these things come from, well, this is what we want. How might we get there? And this is a benefit to us. How do we get there? And so a lot of times that's where the conversation starts, or our team internally is saying, this is going to be something that's going to differentiate this approach or save money or increase conversions or create a better experience for the customer. I think it's usually in the problem solving world that these topics start. And as agencies, we all like to have things that are projects we just kind of lay down and get it done and the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, like we're supposed to be there to kind of problem solve these things for clients. So I think oftentimes it starts there, and it's really just comes down to approach of, at the end of the day, is the app that we're creating, is it going to solve a need for the merchant or for their shoppers? And if so, what's the balance between the effort, not only in terms of what's being put in up front, but also ongoingly? Because a lot of times these things have to be managed and maintained and things like that. And ultimately, what's the ROI story there? If it's there, then great. And let's, plow forward and put some pen to paper in terms of fleshing out those ideas.
Right. Now, I know you've got a lot of experience with long-standing recharge merchants and kind of iterative approaches. Do you feel your team's at a point now where you're proactively, putting tech stacks towards merchants or proposing new ways of doing subscription or handling, let's say, a subscriber experience as part of that life cycle, versus kind of that approach where it's simply response to problems and merchant requests?
Yeah, we have a lot of clients that we've had for a long time. And I think ultimately it really comes down to, this is like a whole different topic, but as an agency, you have to continue to deliver value. Like even when people are happy, there's, a diminishing, perspective on what you're delivering in terms of value. So if you're not taking that client that you suggested this approach and then ultimately learning from other projects and things like that to go like, wow, this worked really well. And we were thinking about maybe this could be something that would be really good for you, or we learned from this piece, ultimately you're not taking advantage of what an agency brings, especially one that's really focused on, one tech platform or another, which is experience. Like nobody wants, not everybody wants the innovative knee injury surgery from the guy who's done it for the first time and is like, I don't know, but it'll be a fun journey. They want somebody who's experienced the ups and downs of that. So I think oftentimes, obviously, I think it really comes down to not necessarily having like one narrow, like you've got to tick these boxes and this fits, but more so knowing, we may be able to get this done with this integration, or we might be able to get it done with this integration, but there's a nuance there because in all honesty, everything looks really shiny in the beginning of the conversation. It's the end thing that people in finance or inventory or, oh, we don't report that way, that's when the gotchas really come up. So you really have to know the questions to ask, which ultimately, unfortunately, you learn the questions from not asking the right ones up front. So that's where I think it just comes down to experience. So I think that's what we're constantly trying to focus our team around, is experience of what did we learn, what was the benefit, what was the outcome, and then how do we make sure that we either don't make that mistake again, or we're able to shorten that time to be able to get that kind of a result for the next person, and then continue to deliver value back to that client we've been working with for some time, because you have that relationship, that trust, and the data really to see what's next.
Absolutely. I think this dovetails nicely into a comment, Thomas, you made earlier. I'm sorry, I saw you put your hand up there, about this idea of, when you have familiarity with technologies and a stack of them, and you've gone through a process of adaptation and manipulating them. I don't know if you have anything to talk about there, about how that's dictating, or lets your team dictate technology choice, for example, and how they approach custom apps versus non.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd love, if it's okay, to piggyback on what Aaron said a little bit. I'm sorry, I can't help myself, but it brought up a couple of situations that I've thought about that have happened to us, and I'd love to share it with the audience. But we get asked also, for us to look at a site, assess it, and tell them what we think we should do to it, and I mean, essentially that's what the question is, and it's an interesting paradigm. Is like, yes, I do have opinions and what does work and what doesn't work, but what I don't have is like the secret. I don't have, like some silver bullet that's going to solve their problems and make them, 10x their revenue. And it's an unfair paradigm to an agency. That's it's one in which I, intentionally kind of dodge, is that we're not here to inflict our agenda onto a merchant. We're here to collaborate, and that's the beauty of a real partnership. What makes our work both personally fulfilling and successful, whatever that means, but a happy merchant, I hope, is true collaboration. So the idea is that we're going to take all of our knowledge and experiences and tools, and think of something really interesting with the merchant. We're going to listen to how they know their products best. They know their customers best. I can't pretend to know those things. And it varies wildly from merchant to merchant. So to kind of step into a conversation and just assume that I've got all the answers is a flawed premise that I won't be successful at delivering on. And it's not my intention to do so. Instead, we work with them and hear out their requirements to then build something really unique. I mean, that's the idea, is that everything is an inspiration, but through true collaboration will something unique be born.
I think so. Yeah. To move on, kind of from there, and this idea of there being, sometimes not a clear fit. I'm very aware that, Aaron, for example, you've been collaborating quite closely with teams like UnionWorks out in the UK and their automate tool. Sorry. Mm-hmm. So let's get a sense of how did you even get to the point of discovery where you knew there's a solution out there that's not necessarily that public, but you knew it was solved for a repetitive problem you're seeing with particular builds?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not to be the metric, and it's the same kind of beating the dead horse in terms of this approach. But I think ultimately, as an agency, right, our focus has been, we really need to understand, not a million different tech stacks and a million, we have to pick the things that we really know well. So we only do, Shopify and Shopify Plus. That's all we do. So because we're living and breathing this stuff, and that's what clients come to us for, is that level of expertise. I think it really comes down to lots of different things. I think we have a really defined, scoping process up front. We have, a solution engineering team that kind of digs in really kind of deep early in terms of the sales process and things like that. And so I would say we're constantly, it really kind of creates a really strong muscle in this like quick solution engineering. We need to figure it out. Where are the problems? What are the questions we need to ask? So we built that muscle up, honestly, and are really good at it from my perspective. And going through that process, ultimately, from our perspective, it's working really closely with, I would say, the solution engineering team, oftentimes on the tech platform, because they have insights into things that they've also seen come across their plate. And so we're sharing ideas and things like that. I would say, we really keep ourselves updated on, hey, ReCharge mentioned some app I haven't heard of, and it's in the documentation. Like, let's go dig in on what that is. Word of mouth is a big thing. And then ultimately just events like this, reaching out to people, even just saying, hey, I don't know what you guys do in terms of gifting with ReCharge, but we don't have a project, but we'd love to just jump on and get a demo. So, I mean, I would say at any given point, we're doing a demo or two a week with kind of the partner team just to get a high level of like, what does it do? What can we do with it? Because if you just bump around and look at the marketing site or things like that, you're not really going to get the nuance of something like an Automate, which is really rich and deep. And so it really just required us to go like, hey, can we just get on and understand what you're doing and see how this tool may be available or useful, now or 30 days from now or 6 months from now kind of thing. So I think it's just keeping yourself informed and then definitely working with the SE and the sales team on the tech platform. Like, you don't have to go it alone. There's no pride to it either. There's nothing wrong with saying, have you seen anything like this? Would you recommend anything? There's no awards for that kind of stuff. So, we ask a lot of questions.
And how do you go through the vetting process when you've gone through, let's say, a demo, for example, of a gifting solution as you raise? How do you qualify them as a product that you and your team would like to work with? Are there particular tick points that you need to see where you say, yes, we're comfortable to pitch?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly minimal asks that we're asking for, right? So, I mean, with any demo and sales situation, right? Like, nobody wants to get on and talk about the critical risks for an hour. That's not what sales is. So, or demos are. And being somebody who's able to kind of go through that sales process, I've got that spiel down pretty well. So ultimately, I would say it's really kind of obviously getting that aspect of it. Let's hear what they think about it. Then it's like getting the engineering team involved. Really having them understand like what's the implementation like, because you start to really understand what it's like there, digging in on what the API is like, ultimately getting a sandbox saying we gotta break this thing and try it and give it a go and see how it rolls. Obviously, we want to do a lot of that without, doing it out on client project. But I would say the other piece of it is it's not always just about the API and things like that. It's also the relationship that you have with the tech platform. Are they willing to go, hey, we're going to talk to you the whole way through this, or we're going to have a Slack channel. Let's talk about things as we go along. Oh, that's a really great idea. We hadn't thought of that. Doesn't mean they have to implement it, but they're open to that conversation and that feedback. So I think we're looking for essentially just a strong relationship, and somebody who's willing to invest in us to get to know their product ultimately so we can recommend it for a client. If we can't stand in front of somebody and feel super confident, because that's what clients want from us. They don't want to hear like, I think it's good. Nobody buys that. So they want to know, no, this is awesome. You're going to love it. Like, they want that excitement. And to do that, you got to know.
I mean, same question to you, Thomas. How do you green light a product?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron did a great job of explaining that. I mean, very similar steps. Product maturity, how long has it been in market? We do, of course, care about the APIs quite a bit. And I mean, really what we do is, because of our background in app making and working with APIs, is what it allows us to do is think about the data in a different way. So it's not just what does a customer see on screen, but how can we manipulate? What are the calls that we need to make? Does this feel like an efficient database architecture? I mean, those are some kind of like technical and nerdy things, but that all matters to us significantly. The dev docs, how professional and polished is it? Are they immediately sending a link, or do you have to ask a bunch of times? And, how many times have they done this before with other people that aren't Scoutside? That all that kind of comes together. But Aaron really nailed it. It's about the partnership. I mean, which is like a great note for ReCharge. We've been working with ReCharge, I think, since there were 8 people at the company, and I can't even keep track of the counter. Rob, what's the count now?
We're on 230 now at this point.
230. Oh, that's so great. I mean, even that makes me so happy. And so the reason that we have had whatever anyone wants to define is the reason we've made it this far, whatever, I don't want to call it success, but the reason that we've made it this far is because of partnerships like ReCharge, in that we're going to embark on some crazy ideas. And that's what Scoutside loves to do. And we've got clients that are willing to take those journeys with us. But what we're building, anyone can build, honestly. I mean, we're just a set of engineers and, and PMs and UX, UI and all this. But what really makes it all possible is a very tight relationship and that partnership. The level of access that we have in a pinch when we need it, when we're about to launch something and have a really critical question, will that be a 48-hour turnaround, or can we talk to somebody in 30 minutes? And so, that's how we define a partnership, just period. I think everybody should, but it's a hard thing to sustain. But in order for us to build the systems that we embark on, it's just critical.
That makes complete sense. I would just say we have got time for QA at the end of the session. So if anyone has any questions on the attendee side for Thomas and Aaron, please do put them into the QA box. I really appreciate both the insights there about how you get to a green light on an application. Just to bring things back to the ReCharge side of things, I'm kind of curious, how do you approach the kind of unique proposition of ReCharge in that we have these continual contact points with a subscriber? And how do you use them as opportunities to bring in third-party tools? And what I mean by this is things like Portal, Theme Engine, post-purchase, lifecycle notifications. Is there any sort of narratives you can speak to on that? And I'll leave that as an open question to you both.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Okay. That's for me, that's the birth. We built our first Shopify site in 2009, and that's the when ReCharge came around and freed us by vaulting the credit card. It changed everything. I was always frustrated that we didn't have access to that for repeat purchases and whatever else could come. I don't know how far I dreamed. I'm not sure it was subscriptions and where commerce has taken us. But that's really where it started is, okay, the credit card's vaulted. Everything's different now. Everything about Shopify, everything I knew about what I was doing has been turned upside down. And so, really on the surface of it, before subscriptions, you sell a T-shirt and you feel grateful that you sold a T-shirt to a customer. You believe your product's great, so they should come buy another. But that's all you've got is the hope that customer returns to the brand. That's it. That's all you've got. With subscriptions, they have to. And it could be for something negative, where they could come to cancel. And that presents a whole host of other opportunities. But the point is that customer has to return to the brand. And so all of their touch points change. For us, we really kind of doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on the post-purchase experience. So the customer portal, and that's what excited me. Just generally speaking, is okay. So the customer has to return to the brand. What do we do? What do we do next? They're not coming here for just tracking information. They're coming here to do one of hundreds of different things, run a skip, change the charge date, hopefully not cancel, see when the next charge is going to occur. Anyway, so what do we do with this? We know that to be true. That's a given. So what do we do next? And that's what we've spent, 2-3+ years playing with, is putting in front of them relevant upsells and cross sells, cancellation preventions and win backs, and loyalty and stuff that's genuine. It's, we're using other third parties that, the great team behind Rebuy that is using intelligent algorithms to actually suggest meaningful product based on what you've already purchased. So it's not just like, hey, let's arbitrarily increase AOV. That's nice, sure, but let's do it in a way that actually benefits the customer, because that's how you create longevity. So all those touch points matter. I mean, ARPU, that team, fabulous. The ability to upsell in an email. I mean, you told me that a couple of years ago, and it would have blown my mind. And it's a really exciting opportunity. So all the touch points matter now.
Fantastic. I don't know if Aaron, you have any more thoughts to add, otherwise we can hop into the public QA.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add to that, I mean, and I agree with everything that Thomas said, is I think ultimately just thinking about these touch points, these interactions with the brand, whether it be skipping or swapping or changing, they are part of essentially what your brand is. Your brand isn't just the marketing, the logo, the ad, the graphics and things like that. It is their experience with the brand. So it's about using those things like the customer portal to bring things together, to, help make those not just an upsell at the point of like, hey, we can get them now, but more so like, hey, this together with this is actually going to have an impact in the way that you're using this product, or you're going to be psyched with it, or the results are going to be better because you're taking these two things together, or you're taking the two things together that you might not want to, kind of thing. Like, have you thought about this? I think as well, like, email is huge. I mean, that is something we continually talk about in terms of just with transactional emails, the engagement with that is so much higher than what you're going to get and how much you're investing in the marketing side of things. These are things that people are expecting to open. I would say the other aspect of it is like SMS. Like, I love the customer portal and we do a ton of work in the customer portal, but what's like the next customer portal? Where is it that you don't have to log in? We've done work where you can text back snooze to, just snooze the order there and have it delay for a period of time, or add one-time items with an API, or, where does a smart speaker come into play to say, hey, your next package is coming up, not right now, maybe 2 weeks from now. Great. How do we, again, map that experience to a human being, which is like changing? So I think those are the really cool opportunities, especially that subscription gives you, because it gives you more of that transactional and back and forth relationship with the shopper. So.
And you've already kind of answered the first question we had in the QA from Tom Haslam, which is, what are the biggest trends you've seen in the subscription space in the last 3 to 6 months? So putting that back to you both, I think the last couple of answers there, I feel kind of answered that, but I'm curious if there are bigger trends you want to highlight or talk about.
I mean, from my perspective, I think the bigger thing that we're seeing a lot of is just people experiencing being open to subscriptions. It's still so new, right? Like, I think people's mental model is still like auto replenishment or a box or things like that. And I think we're getting much more creative about what does it mean to have a subscription with a brand? Does it give you early access, benefits, access to content, access to early products, things like that? Like, how do we essentially make it a membership full of benefits, including products? So I think we're seeing more and more people want to kind of blur the lines of the subscription type, which is, auto replenishment, access, curation. Like, how do we do that ultimately to deliver value? People open to different ideas, whether it be a fashion brand that's not going to go in the box model, but in some other kind of subscription experience. And then definitely, just that, how do we look at the future of where the user interface is going with this chat or voice or whatever that may be, or PWA, like how do we take those things into consideration just to like grease the wheels on that experience?
Yep, new modalities of subscription. That's that's great to hear. And then Thomas, question back to you on that one. What are the biggest trends you've seen in the space the last 3 to 6 months?
We are always trying to do something different than subscribe and save on a PDP. That's what we want. We want that because, I think customers and shoppers are becoming a little wary of it. Is the idea of I can just subscribe to this thing for less money and then just cancel like maybe immediately or more easily. And so, we try to avoid that. We try to combat that. And it's also just very commonplace. And there is a good place and time for it. Replenishing products are highly eligible. But what we're trying to do is create memberships. And that maybe that term's becoming rapidly overused as well. But, it varies from merchant to merchant, but trying to figure out how can they create a much stronger relationship with their customers. What are reasons to bring them back to the domain and that are positive, not to cancel, but to interact? Is it to, accrue points? Is it to log an exercise? Is it to watch videos that are only available to members or, subscribers? Is it, what are all is there a limited flavor or scent that is just being piloted or trialed to subscribers only? And anyway, so, trying to create real reasons to join the brand.
Well, none of the positive interactions, I see Elaine has returned. So, Thomas, Aaron, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate your insights here and for joining us today. I'm sure if anyone has any questions, they can get hold of you through relevant social media. But I appreciate the time. And Elaine, I will hand over to you.